Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Sargent 683. This is a thermal pin kit they call it. Some people will know it certainly as a firebolt. Sargent calls it a thermal pin. And regardless of what you call it, they all kind of do the same type of work in the sense that when you have the application for the Sargent 683 is specifically used in all applications of no or less bottom rod exit devices. There are going to be applications where you have less bottom rod, where to maintain the integrity of the fire rating, you have to have the thermal pin or the firebolt. And that's what this is. You're going to get three components. You're going to get plastic cap. You're going to get the firebolt itself. Okay. And there is a bushing that's here as well. And we're going to look at the installation instructions, which are included. Now what happens is when this is installed, and I would personally install this in the inactive doors where I would put this. I would prefer this to not travel with the door every single time. But, you know, if you're doing a pair of less bottom rods, it's going to go into one of the active doors. So what happens is you'll install both of these at about 400 degrees, or above 400. This plastic, the factory says, wears off. I'm going to say that it melts inside of the firebolt itself. And it fires into the floor or the other door, depending on where you've installed this. So you will see this installed in applications where it will fire into the floor as well. Okay. Basic dimensional properties we'll go over. Overall length of the firebolt, about 2 11/16. Overall diameter of the cap, just heavy on 1 inch. Let's get the caliper and take a couple of additional dimensions. Then we'll switch to the screen view and take a look at the supporting documentation. Outside diameter of the cap, 1.038. 1.038. I'm going to say it's going to project off the face of the door right at about 1/8 of an inch. So, not real thrilled with that. Well, yeah, it's going to be 1/8 of an inch. So be mindful. You've got a cap that's there. The good news is that it has this heavy bevel on it. So it's really not going to impact the operation of the unit, but there will be very little gap there. Then the diameter of the body of the thermal pin, 0.606 diameter. Outside diameter of the face of the unit, 0.701, and its thickness, it's about 50 thousandths. So these two pieces together are going to be right close to each other. Every time that door is closed, this is basically going to be making contact with this every time. Okay, let's switch to the screen view and take a closer look at the supporting documentation. Okay, so this is the item that we are here and looking at. Not much to see here, but let's take a look at some images that are uploaded here. The entire package, the kit itself, just rotate that quickly. Okay. Now, the installation instructions, those are linked down below as well. Instructions for installing thermal pins on listed doors. Now, they're talking about the installation steps, and the first step is to consult the door manufacturer for proper thermal pin orientation. So literally what happens is when you are a manufacturer or a licensed machiner of fire doors, you have a binder called your procedures, and procedures are manufacturer specific. That means you need to prep the door in accordance with the manufacturer of the hardware and the manufacturer of the fire core of the door based on how it was tested. So you could be installing it horizontally and you may be installing it vertically. You have to look at the procedures to know how and where this needs to be installed to be in accordance. Now, the procedures may tell you, very likely will tell you where something may be installed. They don't tell us if it's going to be vertical, how far off the edge of the door to place it, but I would make an educated guess that it would be about 6 inch because the they're showing us 6 inch from the bottom of the door here, and installing 2 would give you another at 12 inch from the bottom of the door. Mark location of holes for thermal pins as shown in the template. They want a 9/16 hole for the fire pin side. They want a 5/8 hole for the cap side. After you have the holes drilled, insert that black sleeve into the 9/16 hole. Here. Place your thermal pin into the sleeve and then carefully tap it in. And I would suggest that you use a rubber mallet or something of that nature to tap that in. Insert thermal pin into the sleeve using a wood block as a spacer. Sure, put a spacer over it, then hammer it in. Tap the thermal pin into the sleeve and then into the hole. Install cap. So what's going to happen is the bushing that's here, or the sleeve, that's going to expand. It's going to sit underneath the head of the fire pin. Install the cap on the other side. Note, consult door manufacturer for the proper orientation. Again, this illustrates what that's going to look like when you're installing it. So you're probably going to notice a little bit of resistance as you initially start to tap it, and then less so as you continue. Center it in the thickness of the door. The maximum gap to be half of an inch between the doors. 20-minute doors don't require thermal pins. Install all your hardware according to the manufacturer's original installation instructions. Locating the thermal pin in the proper orientation at the proper location. Installing your hardware to the manufacturer's published data. Making sure that the doors and their size is accurate and correct based on established fire door assembly guidelines and requirements. You know, you can't have a gap larger than, you know, a specific size for a wood door or a steel door, etc. So if everything is copacetic, you will be happily along your way with this thermal pin. Now, on the item that we're looking at, there's a link here below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can view not only all of the Sargent products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation, but also a link to the website, as well as a link to the current full-line product catalog, as well as previous catalogs. In the case of Sargent and a couple of her sister companies, Yale and Corbin Russwin, or Corbin and Russwin, or PF Corbin, I have some old archival catalogs here as well. If you wanted to see what Sargent was making 125 years ago or so, here are your catalog links. Notable with Sargent would, of course, be their 6300 series removable core, and the manual and how to go about keying that is there. It's not difficult to understand the locksmithing behind that. There's also going to be templates that are here. An 80 series parts manual is here. Items of encyclopedic nature. This is going to be the page where we'll keep them. Let's wrap up this video on camera. In conclusion, the fire pin is a relatively new invention in the hardware industry. I don't know if it's 20 years old or something in that range, but there really was, at some point, maybe in the 90s, don't quote me, but at some point there was a movement to less bottom rod because they found that the rods at the bottom of the doors just caused trouble, and it was evidenced by the fact that people would go to job sites or existing projects and notice that the maintenance people have literally removed the bottom rods. And, hey, those doors aren't fire rated anymore. You remove the bottom rods. Well, listen, you know, they're hitting them with the carts. They're always getting broken. Listen, I pulled them off, and that's all there is to it. So like in practically all instances of the door hardware industry, it reacted and found a solution to it. You don't want bottom rods? Great. We don't want them either. let's do this. Let's add a fire pin. And that sleeve or bushing will go there, and then you're going to tap that in, and that'll spread out to fit over the body of your fire pin. And, you know, at some point, fire pins became the thing. You will also see fire pins used in top flush bolt only applications. You very likely could have a pair of fire-rated doors where you have a lock set on one door, a automatic flush bolt on the top, at the top of the inactive door. That's always going to latch. Probably going to be a coordinator. No bolt at the bottom. No constant bolt at the bottom. And because you can't drill into the floor for whatever reason. Hospital applications, I know they do not permit holes to be drilled in the floor. It's hard to keep holes in floors clean, so they don't allow it in the first place. So you might see a fire bolt or a thermal pin installed in that application. Sargent doesn't make flush bolts, so they probably don't have a fire bolt or a thermal pin for that, but it is a very common item. Her sister company, Rockwood, would have a complementary product line of fire bolts. Any questions on the Sargent 683 thermal pin or any other Sargent product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.